Hey everybody, welcome back to the Metal Mill 52 workshop. My name is Bill, this is my shop. In this series we're building a flat car designed by William Morwood for the Raritan, which is a 3.5 inch gauge or a 3/4 inch scale live steam locomotive. This is the book that you can get from Joe Tansky, who sells the castings. And in this episode there's a lot of stuff. We silver solder the brake bars together and we do silver soldering the parts for the brake hangers that we've made. We machine the axles and the little brass bearing washers that are on the ends there, and we machine the castings, the side castings as well. So a lot of interesting stuff. I think you're going to really enjoy it, and I hope you do. As always, please ask me any questions that you have. I always enjoy hearing from people. If you don't have a question but you'd like to encourage me, please give me a thumbs up. That helps me too, just to know people are watching, and I do appreciate it. So the next, probably it's going to be a long episode, half hour or so. I tried to get segments of a lot of the different operations because that's what I always thought would be most beneficial to somebody who is trying to build something like this. See the setups, see the machining techniques, and some of the assembly techniques. So I hope you enjoy it, and as always, we'll see you next time. Thanks everybody. Bye. In preparing for silver soldering all these parts together, actually took them apart and then cleaned them with some acetone to get off the blue magic marker or Sharpie marker that on any of the parts that'll be silver soldered, and then I sanded it with some 200 grit sandpaper there. After that was done, then I put them individually or in groups basically into my citric acid pickle, let them stay in there for 20 minutes or so just to make sure we get a little etch on the material. And now I've taken them all out and got them drying. The hangers are not that specific, but I wanted to keep the pairs, the left and right pairs, together for the rod, so that's why I did them separately, individuals. You can see this one, the cloth is a little damp there, so I was hoping to get the silver soldering done tonight, but I forgot to bring Russ's camera out here with me, so I'm gonna let this stuff dry overnight, and then tomorrow I'll set up, what I'm thinking of setting up Russ's camera on this little tripod that he gave me, and then maybe setting it on slow motion. I've got the silver soldering area. I was going to use my little torch again. I haven't used this thing in a while. I really like this. So set that up, and I've got the oxygen and propane tanks there too. So I'll probably get that done tomorrow, and I'll show you what that looks like. Well, two of them didn't come out so well, so I pulled them apart. It was the steel pin that didn't take, so to speak, which I was really surprised about since I thought I'd prepared it pretty well with pickling and everything last night. But as you can see, I've redone them, and I got a nice bead of solder around there, so quite certain that those are good. And I'm going to put all these in the pickle, and we'll let those sit for a while, get cleaned up, and I can prepare the brake beam units for soldering. Just a little recap. It took a lot longer than I thought, but I did get all 8 of the hangers silver soldered, and I've cleaned these 4 up after they soaked in the pickle for about half an hour, and then I soaked them in clean water, and I've got these 4 cleaned up. I'll do the rest tomorrow. Speaking of cleaning up, what I'm using is a little stainless steel wire brush in my Dremel. Definitely use eye protection for that. And I do have the one, I'm keeping the pairs together, and I decided to just do the wires into the clevises first. So I've done those, this pair, and I'll silver solder them into the brake bars tomorrow night. The other pair that I just finished a little while ago, and it's been sitting in the pickle, and now I'm going to leave it in the clean water for a while. But that's what I just put it in the clean water thing to rinse off. And I'll pull them out, let them dry, and then we'll silver solder them to the brake bars tomorrow. Alright, back in the shop on Thursday night, and as you can see, hopefully it'll show up, I cleaned these things off, all 4 of them, very carefully. I used the stainless steel wire wheel first on the Dremel, and then I used one of these abrasive discs. I forget what they call them, but I really love these things. So it cleaned up really nice. And then just for the parts that we're going to get soldered together, I used some sandpaper as well, some 200 grit sandpaper. And I've cleaned up 4 of these last night. I haven't got the other 4, haven't done those yet, but that kind of shows you like the after cleaning and pickling and stuff, and these have not been cleaned yet, but I think I got good joints on all of them. Let me walk over here and show you. I just sort of as a trial, I should mention I got the mini torch hooked up again, and I changed to the small, this is the number 5 flame tip, torch tip, and that works really good. It gives you a nice, really super hot flame, real narrow, and about 1.5 inches long. And so what I did was I silver soldered the center section first, and then I just finished doing the 2 end sections. I'm letting it cool in place. I hope this is going to work. I did use the belt grinder, and I ground the little flat on the wires. Sorry about the camera work there. And I also ran the sandpaper over on the bar as well to give a nice sanded surface. And of course I used flux and then the silver solder. So it's cooled for a little while now. I'm going to take the clamps off and hopefully we have a good joint. My thought is I can get all 4 of these done. I'm probably going to do them one by one because there's only 4, and they're, it's a little tricky or a little involved. So actually I'm going to do 2, and then I'll put those 2 in the citric acid pickle, and then I'll come back and do the other 2. Here's what I mean by the angle. You can see I use the belt sander to grind a little flat, there we go, sort of a chisel point on the wires. I think with this one I'm going to try to pre-bend them too. We'll see. This first one was not quite as good as I hoped, but I think I got it solid. This one seems to come out a little bit better. I didn't have to clamp it initially, although this one on this side, let me see if I can try the zoom feature here. Yeah, it didn't come out really well, so I had to clamp it and then reheat it. I think I've got a good joint there. So we'll see. I'm letting it cool down, and then I'll give it a little stress test before I put it in the pickle. Okay, well there's a pretty good night's work there getting those silver solder together. Came out pretty decent, I think. And this is just after they sat in the pickle for 20 minutes or so and then dunked in the fresh water tank. So they haven't been polished up yet. So tomorrow night I'll be able to finish polishing up these 4 as well as the 2 bars. Okay, got the camera set up. I'm going to do a little dremeling. I've used to clean the parts off. They've all been in the pickle for a while, and I've used the stainless steel brush on them. You can't see my head, but I've got my, when I use the Dremel, I always put this mask or this face shield on just to, because the parts will fry, come off and fly around, and I want to keep them out of my eyeballs. So you're going to hear the high-pitched whine of the Dremel in a second. Okay, so that's the one of the brake bars. I'll do the other 3 of them. It's probably maybe kind of hard to see, but here's one that's been, been buffed, and here's one that hasn't. Or this one has only had the stainless steel wire wheel, so it gets a pretty uniform finish, a nice kind of brushed stainless look almost. And let me do. There's one of these particular the hangers is particularly dirty looking, even after it's been pickled and wire wheeled with the stainless. So I want to see, I'm anxious to see how it will clean up using the buffer pad on the Dremel. That one cleaned up really nice on that side anyway. It's a little easier. It's still kind of dirty, a lot of scale on the inside. I'm going to try to get it real quick. I like all Dremels, but I do like these older. This is a model 395. It's a little more compact than the bigger ones. The speed control does wear out after time, but they're easy to replace. You can get the parts off of eBay. So this one cleaned up pretty nice. I'm going to go ahead and do the other 7 of them. And it's just, you know, I could leave them dirty like that. It's not that big of a deal. It's just sort of a point of pride for me. I like things to be decent looking, and it's kind of nice. You kind of get off the rough edges a little bit with those Dremel buffing pads. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that little segment there, and thanks again, Russ. It looks like the picture is coming in really clear on that, so let me cut that off. As I pointed out when I was making some of these parts for the top bolster, spring plank, and the brake bracket, this hole is 3/8 of an inch, and this hole is 5/16. And they need to be lined up perfectly so I can drill and tap the number 4 40 thread per inch holes here that will hold the brake bracket in place. So what I got thinking about, how am I going to do that and make sure it's perfectly centered. What I decided to do is make a little alignment jig. It's kind of like a pilot bearing on a clutch throwout, if you're familiar with cars, but I took a piece of 1/2 inch steel and I turned it down. This diameter is right at 3/8 of an inch, so it's a nice fit, just a nice sliding fit on the brake bracket. Then this diameter is 5/16, so it fits on the spring plank. So that'll keep the 2 parts aligned, at least centrally around that hole. And so now I can cut this thing off and I'll use it. My plan is to use the alignment pin and then crazy glue and clamp these parts in place for the drilling and the tapping. So just thought I'd show that handy little jig to make. Hey, now it's time to drill and tap the 440 holes through the steel brake bracket in the top plank or spring bar, whatever you want to call it. I thought the ideal tool to do this would be the universal pillar tool, and if you've watched my videos, you know that it's one of my favorite tools. I've built it myself using castings from Martin Model and Pattern in, I believe they're in Oregon, anyway, but in the northwestern United States. But it's perfect for drilling and tapping here. So I'm going to leave the camera running for a minute while I go ahead and drill the 4 holes here. First I'm going to use the larger drill that we used to drill the clearance holes in the steel. Just going to make a little indent, because I can't get a, what do you call it? I can't get a center drill down through there in that spot. So we'll just drill down and make a little indent, and then we'll switch out the drill and use the proper tapping size drill. Okay. Got some little oil on the drill. And where's my foot pedal? There it is. Let's check. Well, I guess it's not on. There we go. Nice thing about this is you can adjust the height. And let's set it up so that the drill goes straight through there. Now you can see why I wanted to make that pin and crazy glue these down like I did last night. Good. Do one more. There we go. Now I can swap out the drill, put the proper size drill in for the tap. And now the hole should have a little point at the bottom, which should give me a nice, make sure that the hole goes into the right spot. This pillar drill is the one that they sell two different varieties. The standard one only has a 3-inch arm here, but this one has a 6-inch arm. There we go. Alrighty. I'm going to cut the camera off, so I'm going to do the other one, same thing, and then I'll bring you back for the tapping process. Hey guys, got the first one done. Let me show you that. Got the little 440 screws in there. So now I've got the second one ready to go. And this is what the beauty of the pillar tool is, that the tapping head can just be twisted in like this. I did put a little bit of tapping fluid on the tap, and of course it's pretty soft aluminum that we're tapping into, so we don't have to back up every turn. It does help, of course, if you do that. And as you can see, I've got the very elegant vice grips on the handle. Since this is 440 is not exactly a finesse size, so we can go in there. But that's the beauty of the pillar tool. You got full support for your work here, and easy to see, and you got the drilling on one side and tapping on the other. What I like to do, just to kind of brush off, there's plenty of cutting fluid on this brush, so brush off in between each one. You get the idea, so I'm not going to belabor it anymore, but I'll cut the video off here and bring you back for the next step. Next up, I decided to make the axles, and I'll tell you, I was expecting to get them completely done tonight. However, I will say, as you can see, I just completed roughing them out and drilling the hole on the end. I did get all 4 of them done, and I ended up breaking a drill in one of them. You can see the plans call for a number 56 size drill in there, and I drilled like 1.5 axles and then broke the dang drill off. Had to make a new axle blank and decided to go ahead and use a 1/16 inch hole here for the wire, the retaining wire that'll go through there. So in case you're wondering why it looks a little bit large, but I'll hopefully turn them down to size tomorrow night and I'll bring you back for that. Hey folks, welcome back. After a night of broken drills last night, I thought tonight should be fun, hopefully, and I'm not going to video all of this, but thanks again to Russ and his cool camera. I've got it set up on the tripod on top of my my tool chest there, so I'll take a little bit of live action shot on the lathe, but what I wanted to show is with the end of the axles, you're not going to see all the detail on this, of course, but what I do is I drew it out, the machining that needs to happen on either end, and then I made a little list. Basically, I'm going to turn the first 1/32 down to the 5/16 inch diameter. Then I'll come in and turn this portion down to the diameter of where the bearing shield is, and then finally I'll turn this small 0.391 inch length, just over 3/4 of an inch length, down to the 1/87 inch diameter. So I'll do all of that in successive stages, and then I'll come in and then I'll put in the undercut, and then that end of the axle will be done, and I can flip it around and do the other side. The one thing, I did measure the inside of the bearing yesterday, and one thing I need to do is to double check that before I turn this final dimension here, because I measured it and I wrote it down over there. I didn't write it down over here. So I'll do that. Let me cut the camera off now, and I'll bring you back and show you a minute or so of the actual turning process. All right, I'm going to start turning, and I'm not going to be talking or anything. There'll just be some lathe noise while I cut this diameter. The first diameter, it goes from a 3/8 inch down to 0.3125, which is 5/16. I got my DRO set up. That shows, yeah, cool. So I'm just going to have at it for a little bit. You guys have seen turning on the lathe before. I'm just experimenting basically to see what this looks like using Russ's cool camera. So hope you enjoy. All right, that's 2 minutes of that. So I'm just going to shut it off now and then focus on turning this down. I'll bring you back when we have this one completed. Well, it took forever, but part of the reason that I cut the camera off is I actually made that first cut too long. As you can see here, this should not be a reduced diameter where I've got the little paintbrush tip. It should be solid 3/8 all the way out here to the undercut. But I'll just have to be a little extra careful. There's some meat there. I'll just be extra careful when I'm going to Loctite the wheels on anyway. So instead of pressing, if I was pressing them, it would be more critical because I would, run the risk of pressing this wheel on too far. But I'll be careful. This is the little step for the bearing shoulder, and then this is the, for the bearing shield, and then there's a step for the bearing itself, which I have one here, and I just test fitted on, and I don't know where I put it, so I'll show you later that I did machine this down very carefully. I got the right dimension, and it slips on just right, actually. So pretty pleased, other than the giant goof up here. So now I take it out, flip it around, and do the other side properly. Here's the other half of the first axle, and this is the way they should look, so I just wanted to show that. Just finished the undercut there. I used the file just to knock off any edges, and here's one of the little roller skate kind of bearings that it slips right on. It's a little snug, just a teeny bit, not really, but it's not loose at all. So I turned it. It was just a couple tenths probably over, a couple of swipes with the file, and it slipped on just fine. So that's what the bearing looks like. It is funny to think you got this big fat axle here, but basically all the weight will be riding on these little, basically 3/16 inch sections. So anyway, that's the way they work. That's the way they go. The bearing shield will be up against this, and then the wheel itself will be on this portion right here, the 5/16 inch thick portion. So now I just lather, rinse, repeat for the other three axles. All right, I thought of a fix. This kind of bugged me, that although it probably would not be a big issue, but the axle that I screwed up on, I thought of a fix. I could use green Loctite and Loctite on a little sleeve. So I've taken a piece of 3/8 inch steel and I drilled it out with a letter R size drill. You can see it's very thin walled there. Now I'm getting ready to cut it off, just 70 thousandths worth slice there. That should give me the sleeve. So if all works well, that'll cut off clean, and then I can use that green Loctite it on and fix that axle. Let's give it a whirl. Trying a little experiment with the camera angles and such here. Here's the little piece I made, the little sleeve. I just tried it out. Let me see if I can get it on the same way again. Well, I guess it would help if I put it on the end that needs it. It's a tight little squeeze there. That's the wrong way. Let me try it this way. Here we go. So if you can see that, that's a pretty good fit. All I'm going to do now is clean it off with acetone, and then I'll put it on with the green Loctite and let it dry overnight. Then tomorrow I can come back with that parting tool again and make sure that gap is at the exact right spot here at the 1 1/32 of an inch from the end. So that'll be a nice little solution for a bugaboo. Pleased to come up with that idea. Hey, that cleaned up pretty nice. Let me see if I can zoom in and show you the band. You can see the ring where I made the little extra ring. I guess that's a little too close for the focus. Sorry. But what I did, last night I Loctited it on and I put it in the lathe today. I just used a file to bring the finish, the uniform with the rest of the axle, and then I put the cutoff blade in and moved over 1 1/32 inch and went in and did a plunge cut clean up so that edge is perfect, right like it should be if it was a solid piece. So there we go. Happy. I got Russ's camera set up on the lathe here, and I'm making the little brass washers that go on the end of the axle I've finished one, and I'm about ready to part this one off. Let me show you. Hang on a second. Use this little paintbrush to catch it when I part it off. And here's what the finished washer looks like, with the little bearing on the end of the axle. It's kind of cool, nice little part there. But the only shame of it is the parting tool is about 100 thou wide, so I'm wasting a lot of brass parting this off at the exact right distance, but oh well. So let me go ahead and set it. The first part, I've made it's 5/16 inch by a 32nd inch deep step basically in the washer, and then I'm parting it off at a 1/16 of an inch, so right at 62.5 thou. There we go. And we'll go ahead and part it off. The drilled a number 11 hole through the center of this whole piece of brass. You take a file and just deburr the edge there. So here's the finished washer, little brass washer. That's not focusing, is it? There we go. So pretty cool little piece. Not much to make them. Not much work. I'll clean this up a little bit. You know, sand off the back of it. There's a little burr on the back. You can feel that with your fingers, but a few strokes with a file will take care of that. Yeah, that's all there is to it. Do the front. Alright, let's show you what it looks like on the axle. There we go. Oh, got it reversed. Nice little bearing shield. I don't know how necessary these are, because I bought shielded bearings already, but there was room for it, and I figured, what the heck, I might as well go ahead and make them. So there we have it. Now I have to make 6 more. I need 8 total. I just finished machining all 4 of the side frames. I've made the hole in there, the 1/2 inch hole that the bearing will sit in, and there's a deeper hole for the end of the axle. I wanted to show the things I used to do the setup. First of all, the side castings are sitting on a 1, 2, 3 block, and then I've got a little parallel here to push them, you know, to make it tight. And because the side that this is not 2 inches, so the part of this is less resting on the edge of the 1, 2, 3 block. That's what this is there for. And then the little side blocks here are from a clamping kit, and all they're doing is just preventing the casting from being pushed down by the pressure of the drill. And this giant C-clamp that you see on here, it's not tight, it's just to hold them in place. And you can see it's being supported here. I just barely touched it just to hold them in place, and then I put these magnets underneath just to hold this in place. And obviously the reason I didn't want to tighten the C-clamp is it would wedge these in underneath and pop it up and make this uneven. So that's that part of the setup. From there, I indexed against this back, the fixed jaw here. It was easy enough, and I could come up 5/8 of an inch. And if you can see right here, I had carefully marked all the centers of the center holes with the little graphite pencil marker, and then I used my wiggler to find the center on each of them. And then I marked that center on my x-axis on the DRO, and then went back to the 5/8, the 0.625 figure here, and then I could move over 1.9375. I used 1.9376 because my DRO only does even tenths. But then, so once I got in place, then I would use the center drill, and then a smaller drill, doesn't really matter what size, sort of a pilot. Then the 3/8 inch drill down to 1/2 inch in, and then the 1/2 inch drill, or 1/4 inch deep. And I used an end mill just to give myself a nice clean flat bottom there for the bearing to ride on. So that's all. And when I set the depth on the end mill, I used this feeler gauge on top, press the end mill down into it, and set a 0 on my quill DRO, and then was able to get the 1/4 inch depth accurate. So that's the last one. Let me walk you over. I'll show you the DRO in case you're unfamiliar with what I'm talking about. Of course, I sketched it all out, and if you may have noticed, I was using stubby drills. Fortunate enough to have a set of stubby drills, so that's the index. Let me take you over here, show you all the rest of them here, and I will bring you back in a minute to wrap up this week's episode. Alright, this will be the last segment in this week's episode. Got a lot done, got the axles done, the side castings machined out for the bearings, made all the little bearing washers there that you can see, got the silver soldering done, so quite a bit done. There's still tons to do, even just on the trucks. So the main things next will be making all the clevises, the little parts that hold things together inside the brakes, and then the brake ring itself, that's going to be some serious machining and figuring out, as well as the wheel castings here. So plenty to do yet, but a nice start on the project. So thanks for being with me. As always, if you have a question, please ask. If you don't have a question but you would like to offer encouragement, please give me a thumbs up. I do appreciate it. It does mean a lot, and I always enjoy it. Thank you so much. Have a great week. We'll talk to you soon.